you want to see lots of manatees in the winter months and enjoy some local history, then you might want to check out a place called Blue Spring. There were hundreds of manatees, especially because it was a cold spell. Mid-November through March is the best time to see them. Now, Cocoa is about 90 minutes from Blue Spring State Park, which isn't too bad, but if you want to stay somewhere closer, both Orlando and Daytona Beach are just 40 minutes away. There's plenty to do in this park. It's too cold right now to swim or kayak, so we're going to see the manatees, visit the historic Thursby House, and see what we can find along the river cruise.
Oh, here he is, Chris. Oh. Chris. Oh, he was on the surface.
If you haven't seen manatees before, they're called sea cows, and they're peaceful, gentle creatures. They're slow-moving and probably not as interesting to watch as squirrels or bears, but they're so chill you might just find your stress level dropping a bit. Manatees are also curious. Sometimes they're too curious and they have injuries where they get too close to ship propellers and fishing nets. They're vegetarian and they spend a lot of time grazing. They live off aquatic plants in the springs, like pickerel and shoalgrass. From what I'm hearing, there are 559 manatees out there this morning. That seems like a strangely precise number. I wonder if someone has the job of going around and counting manatees every morning. One thing that popped into my mind, do gators eat manatees? And the answer is no. They don't generally bother adult manatees. Gators eat fish, birds, and small animals. And their MO is that they attack and try to drown their prey. But manatees, they're larger and more robust, and they'll hold their breath longer, and they can swim fast. So, no worries about the manatees. I'm not sure what those little floating buoys are. I don't know, perhaps they're measuring water depth. Any ideas? There's one coming up for a breath.
Right. You can see it's attached right there.
There are some different types of fish here too. If you look closely, you can see some of them. The water is so clear. There's a boardwalk here that runs along the springs, and even in the winter you'll see lots of lovely vegetation. You can even get your picture taken next to a fake manatee. Blue Springs became a state park in 1972 with the help of Jacque Cousteau, after he filmed an episode called The Forgotten Mermaids, and there's an old video out here on YouTube.
Returning to Blue Springs, Cousteau rendezvous with...
I watched this video after my visit. It's very dated, but with a few interesting takeaways. Why Cousteau wanted to help. Looking at the challenges that the manatees were facing, you can see why Cousteau wanted to get the park started. Don't pet the manatees. You'll see why you shouldn't pet manatees, like you see the tourists doing in 1971. It's an interesting early 70s time capsule. Let's just say the park looks much nicer now, and it seems better for the wildlife. Rod Serling could make anything sound intriguing. You'll recognize his voice right away as the narrator if you've ever watched The Twilight Zone. Here we are, continuing along the boardwalk, which I think is almost a half-mile long. Despite it being a colder day, there are quite a few people out here enjoying the sun and the manatees. Just across from the boardwalk is the Thursby House. The Thursby family settled here in 1856. Louis Thursby was one of the earliest European settlers in the area, and you can just imagine what a wild landscape this must have been to cultivate. He chose to build his house near the river, where he built an orange grove, and he set up a pier for passing steamboats. The ruins of these old docks would remain here for decades. Blue Springs became a popular stop. By the 1880s, there were 5 steamboats running each day carrying freight and tourists. Then they started building railroads here. A narrow gauge railroad ran between Blue Spring and Orange City, and then it was replaced by a standard gauge. The Thursby House itself was built on top of a shell midden. There's been some archaeological work done in exploring these middens. Consider how much you can tell about someone by looking at what they throw out. The Thursby House was also initially smaller than the one we're looking at. Later, Thursby's son added a 3rd floor to it. That's an interesting old window lock. That looks like a face. You might think that with all the orange groves and the railroads and other little towns that were cropping up, business would have been booming for Blue Spring. Well, in the winter of 1894-95, there was a devastating freeze. It wasn't one of those, where you go out in the middle of the night and cover your plants kind of freezes. No, this is where throughout the entire winter there were freezes, back to back. All throughout the winter, temperatures dropping to 18 degrees, to 17 degrees. It devastated the area's citrus groves, and many up-and-coming small towns, including Blue Springs, were hit hard. It's an easy walk from the visitor center to the dock. You can easily get a boat tour or rent or launch a canoe or kayak. I recommend the St. John's River Cruise that is 2 hours and runs right from these docks. It's a great opportunity to see some real Florida swamp with lots of wildlife. We're just 5 minutes down the river and we're seeing little blue herons. I'm going through here with a group of birders and we're seeing lots of birds and several gators as well. Nice reflection of the old trees in the water. Here's an anhinga drying his wings. I've seen vultures do this too.
Now the males have that black head and neck. Females have a really pretty mocha brown head and neck.
There's a male and female anhinga. The guide is referring to this as a piano bird, but it's also called the snake bird because of the way they stretch their necks.
There you go. And you can really see that white and black feather pattern, which makes it the piano bird.
There, look at that neck stretch.
Very cool. Well, yeah, that 30-degree decline all the way up to Jacksonville and out into the Atlantic Ocean comes from our headwaters in Fellsmere Slough. So it's actually a majority of this.
The little colorful bird in there is the purple gallinule. Here's a great egret.
And the fashion industry actually switched over to the peacock for their feathers.
As you go along the St. Johns River, you'll see some hardwood forest, a mix of bald cypress and swamp tupelo.
Recently, last week or so, I've seen if we can get close up.
In the summer, this will all be a deeper, lusher green. It will also be very hot and probably buggy. If you visited this park before in the summer, please share in the comments.
Ibis yet, but way up there. I got it.
There's another boat coming up behind us. Now we're coming up on some trees with a bunch of white ibises. If you live in the southeast, you'll probably see these and you think, whatever. But I've only been here a few years and I still get excited when I see them. You'll see this moss here on the trees. It's very interesting. There's your night heron. And another heron. Here we go. Can you see them? I think there are 5 little ones. So we're nearing the end here. If you want to visit Blue Springs, it's $6 per vehicle to enter the park and $2 if you walk in or you bicycle in. You can camp, swim, kayak, scuba dive. But as we found out today, it makes for a great place to visit, even if for just one day in the winter.